What's good, Defenders? And welcome to episode 372 of Defenders of the Bank, the most LAFC podcast on the planet. It's going to be an interesting one, folks. It's going to be a very, very interesting episode. I invite all of you to join us in the chat, to commiserate, to get upset, to get frustrated, to talk it all out here in what I think has been, in amongst our however many hundreds of matches that LAFC has now played in our club's history, what has to be one of the most infuriating, frustrating, and really just disappointing performances on the pitch that we have seen in quite some time. Not nearly as positive as I normally am, but you know my voice. It's the Scarf. J.R. Liebert coming to you live from Lawndale. And I'll be honest, I have no idea where Chris Lafferty just went here for a second, but I think he's working on some issues with the old camera right now. So listen, let's talk for just a quick second on the quote in the press conference when I asked Denis Bouanga what it was like to be taken out of the match, which was inexplicable to me. What it was like to be taken out of the match and have to watch all of that from the sideline. From the sideline, I am blown away. And Denis Bouanga said he was confused, didn't know why he was taken out of the match. And more importantly, just like Lachero said in the chat already, just like Rob has basically said in the chat already, just like all of us felt at BMO Stadium or at home or at watch parties, wherever you were following along, this 3-3 draw in unequivocal terms felt like a loss. It, in all intents and purposes, was a loss for LAFC. And now, the most infuriating part of all of this is that LAFC has to go another full year without having beaten Carson. And I'll just put it very, very simply. There are several Galaxy accounts that we follow and we track here on Defenders of the Bank. And one of them tweeted very, very simply, "It's the worst season in Galaxy history, and they still can't beat us." Lots to talk about there. I have no idea what is going on with Chris Lafferty. He's got, I'm just looking at all kinds of stuff. There's a lot going on here behind the scenes. But before I bring Lafferty on, maybe I get to bring Lafferty on. Here he comes. This is not quite the start to this podcast that I would have wanted. But you know what? Before I bring Lafferty on, I've got something to say, and I've got something to unpack a little bit here. We're pretty lucky here at Defenders of the Bank. We're pretty lucky for so many reasons. And I want to talk about that for a quick minute or two at the top of the show today. I do. I think there's a Chris Lafferty. Hi, Chris.
Hi, I'm back. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, we're pretty lucky here at Defenders of the Bank. I want to talk about that at the top of the show. Philly and I have had media credentials now for most of the time our club has been around. We've covered games during COVID in the stadium when almost no one else was in the building. We had the privilege of doing that. We heard pigeons roosting in the roof of BMO Stadium, then Bank of California Stadium, because it was so quiet. We had conversations, not shouting down to team security Paul, but simply conversing with him, even though we were covering the match up in Sunset Club, because that's where they put all of the media that was covering it. We each had our own little spot in Sunset Club. We were talking to team security Paul down on the sideline. That's how quiet it was. That's how empty the building was. It was all very surreal, but Defenders of the Bank was there. We were there throughout the incredible run of 2022, the heartbreaking 2023 run, obviously everything since. Outside work very clearly does get in the way from time to time. As for Philly and myself and Lafferty, this isn't our 9 to 5 like it is for our friends Scott and Josh and Justin, and yes, even Kevin Baxter. That's their 9 to 5. This isn't our 9 to 5. Like many of you know, I'm a middle school teacher. Philly works in the financial world. He's calling games from about a dozen different sources now. So this is not our 9 to 5. But Philly and I, and Chris Lafferty as well, we take it very seriously. Back to being very lucky, we get to cover this team. We view it as a privilege 100% of the time. Not work, not something we have to do, but something that we get to do. We have a season-long press credential. We have a website that badly needs updating, we know. We try to be entertaining, educational, informative on our social media outlets, of which I handle Twitter and Philly does pretty much everything else on social media, and I would be lost without Philly on socials. But we also recognize here at Defenders of the Bank, we recognize our unique place in the media rooms. Every single match, every single press conference, every single time we are there. LAFC PR knows who we are and why we are there. We at Defenders of the Bank, we kind of straddle that line between supporter and journalist, right? We very much cover the club as a journalist would, doing our research, asking tough questions, always trying to maintain that level of professionalism that comes with having that type of access, right? Having an actual press credential, having a seat in the press box or at the press conferences. But then there's the other side of that coin, the other reason why Philly and I started this in the very first place back in 2018. We also strive to be, we also want to be the voice of all of you out there, the voice of the people, the voice of the supporters of the black and gold, the voice that is oftentimes frustrated with the club, that is oftentimes upset with the club, disappointed in the club, the voice that celebrates with the club when things go very, very well. For those of you in the stands, for those of you at home, for those of you watching this club day in and day out, those of you bleeding for this club, those of you spending your hard-earned money on this club day in and day out, we are not impartial journalists who have to cover the club objectively. In fact, I would say we are the very opposite of that at times. We do lead with our hearts at times because our hearts feel things for this club. Joy when we win, heartache when we lose, anger, sadness, frustration, disbelief when we let something happen like what happened last night. I got great advice from someone in LAFC PR this season. I'll make sure they remain nameless, but it was great advice. And it really resonated with me, especially because it happened last night. And it got me thinking about this as I was driving home. The advice was, as somebody who covers the club, who has a press credential, and who, when you're in the press room, when you're in those press conferences in the press box, you do have to try and remain impartial to a point, right? There's no cheering in the press box. There's no asking certain types of questions that will get you, removed from the press box or the press credential or whatever, because there is a level of professionalism that needs to be maintained at all times. But the advice was this, and I loved this advice because it was necessary to give to me. The advice was to try to not use we when talking about LAFC, when asking the questions, because the question can come off very biased in terms of point of view. For example, what could LAFC have done to better close out the last 15 to 20 minutes of last night's match versus what could we have done better? And I totally understand what they were saying and where they were coming from when they gave me that advice, and they've given it to me a couple of times. But in a small way, I love that I struggle with that. I love that that doesn't come naturally for me. I listen to Scott and Josh and Justin and Kevin and so many others that are in that press room every day, ask questions, and it rolls off of their tongue. Not the we, obviously, because they are not covering LAFC in the same way that we are. But I struggle with that. I love that we wants to come flying out of my mouth instead of the club or LAFC, because that's how I'm hardwired. That's how Chris Lafferty would be hardwired. That's how Philly is hardwired. That's one of the reasons why I'm there, to try and represent the we in the stands, the we in our community, the we that makes up the heart and soul of this club. Denis Bouanga may be on the verge of passing Carlos Vela. Eddie Segura may have passed Latif Blessing in terms of matches played and is quickly moving up the red card list on our club as well. But we all know players come and go, coaches come and go, employees come and go. But the heart and soul of this club are the people, the we, the supporters, the city that this club plays for. That's why we are here, defenders of the bank. That's why last night, even though it was a draw, in the words of Denis Bouanga, it was absolutely more of a loss. And that's why we are all so frustrated. We are all so angry. We are also disappointed in what happened last night. And I promise I'm going to let Chris Lafferty talk in a second. That's why we are going to try and unpack this as best we can, while still looking at some things objectively and some things absolutely under the microscope and the lens of the LAFC supporters, the faithful, the millions that make this club and honestly this podcast so much fun to do every single day. So with that, Chris Lafferty, hi, my friend. I'm glad you got all your camera issues set aside. Your thoughts real quick on everything that happened last night, and then we'll kind of begin to unpack it.
Well, thank you for getting that off your chest, because I think it's good for not only you to say, but also for everybody here who listens to the show to hear. And it's important because, well, I'm somebody who I started out just in the chats, and then as we got to know each other more and you knew more about my background, you trusted me to come on here and talk about it. So that's the world I come from, just being a fan. I often talk about how I moved to Los Angeles in 2019. I was here. I'm not a day one guy. I was Sam, a day two guy. I came the next year. And, I very much hopped off the plane at LAX with my dreams in a cardigan when I moved here. See, I'm glad you can laugh. But no, literally, when I moved in, I landed at LAX, I was wearing a cardigan. It was January. It was a little chilly. Anyway, I moved here, as so many people do, to Los Angeles, with a lot of hopes and dreams. And I've got a lot of aspirations in my field that I'm in. It's a very cutthroat field, one that you are almost guaranteed to not be successful in, but I do it anyway. And oftentimes, in the down years that we've had in the film and TV industry, where things aren't going well, you can't get booked, you can't get auditions, can't get work, nothing's going right for you. The one constant has been LAFC. They've often been my kind of crutch, the one thing keeping you going. It's been that club that just gives you that energy, and I often say, I moved out here to follow my dreams. And, well, so far, I guess my dream was just being a big fan of LAFC, because that's what I've done the majority of my time here in Los Angeles. And it's... You're right. So it makes it very personal for us. And I often say we, because, well, I also feel like LAFC does a much better job than anybody else of making us feel included in this, of getting us involved in the community, at the games. The opportunities we've had really enrich the experience for us, but really deepen the connection that we have with the club. So we get our hopes up, because it means a lot more to us. It means a lot more than just, us losing a game, whatever. Look, if the Lakers blew a game, if the Lakers lost to the Clippers last night, it'd be like, shoot, okay, well, we'll get them back later. Or the season goes on, and you don't even think about it, maybe more than a day. But with LAFC, the games are different. This means a lot more, because it is a we. It's not just our team losing. It's kind of the representation of what LA means to us, what our home is. And that's what the black and gold represents. It's our home. This is who we are and where we live. It's not just a team on a field. So, yes, I share your sentiments, Scarf, and I thank you for articulating them as well as you have, because I think it's something that everybody's feeling here. And I just want everybody in the chat to know that as often as I am positive and optimistic and giving people the benefit of the doubt and everything, it's not naive. It's my own optimism, but I also share a lot of your sentiments and your passion for it. And I will always be very honest with how I feel about it. And I think that's what we do here at Defenders all the time. So without taking up more of your time on that note, I want to say thank you, Scarf, for sharing that. Thank you, chat, and everybody listening for allowing us to do this today. And I hope that you all know this is not just a recap show. This is not us cosplaying as people on ESPN. We are here with you to talk about the thing that we all collectively love. Scarf, you're on mute, my buddy.
Don't mind me. I'm wearing the same T-shirt that I wore to bed and to the match, and I couldn't even bring myself to get up early enough to shower this morning. I was so frustrated. I just came down, rewatched. I actually just chose to rewatch the second half on this one because I was pretty clear and pretty sure I knew what had gone on in the first half. We are going to recap all of it for you, obviously, tonight, or today, but it was the second half that I really needed to help unpack in my own head, and that's what we're going to try and do. Let's get into a very quick This Day in LAFC history and news and notes, and then we'll get right into it. This match was played on the 19th. That was yesterday, the 19th of July, 2025. And on the 19th of July in 2019, last night was episode 26 of the Battle for Los Angeles of El Tráfico, the 26th time that LAFC and Carson have played each other. On the 19th of July in 2019, it was round 4. And round 4, unfortunately, went to Carson 3-2 at Dignity Health Sports Park. That dropped LAFC to 0-2-2 in derby matches. It was a brace for Carlos Vela, including, wait for it, how history tends to repeat itself. A brace for Carlos Vela, including a goal in the 7th minute of second half stoppage time. It wasn't enough, as Zlatan Ibrahimovic had a hat trick, scoring in the 8th, the 56th, and the 70th minute. It was one of those matches that we had a clear villain and a clear hero. Carlos Vela became the fastest player in MLS history to 20 goals, doing it in 20 games. It was part of his magical 2019 season in which he scored 34 goals and had 15 assists for 49 goal contributions on the season. Lionel Messi and Andres Dreyer are having incredible seasons this year, but they are not yet approaching the 49 goal contributions or the 34 goals that Carlos Vela had in 2019. That was also the game, unfortunately, where Mohamed El Munir suffered that facial fracture from an elbow by Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And again, it's just interesting how history tends to repeat itself. Back in 2019, a goal in the 90th plus 7, 97th minute of the match, just like yesterday. And a lot of you are going to wonder, why was there even 7 minutes of stoppage time? I actually agree that there should have been. I don't think that part was the issue. And I'll tell you why. As we get a little bit closer to that point. But today is July 20th. We got a couple birthdays in LAFC lore, the first of which, born in 1961, Zach Abdel, he was our goalkeeper coach for the first 4 seasons, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Before we brought on Oka Nikolov, we had Zach Abdel as our goalkeeper coach. Happy birthday to Zach Abdel. And somewhere over in Cruz Azul land, happy birthday to Omar Campos, born on the 20th in 2002. And that is This Day in LAFC history. One quick bit of news and notes. While this episode is currently live and going on for a lot of you. There's also the tournament out at Jesse Owens Stadium at Cal State LA between Sacramento Republic FC, LA Galaxy, San Jose Earthquakes, and LAFC. The 4 unified teams from those 4 clubs are playing in a tournament right now. I'm going to head out after we're done recording and catch as much of the remainder of the tournament as possible. The games will be running kind of at the same time against each other, 5-minute half times, 10 minutes in between each match. The tournament winner will be the team with the most points, and then announced at the end of the day. So after you're done listening to us, maybe you guys can head out to Jesse Owens Stadium as well. And then LAFC 2 does play tonight in Thousand Oaks on the campus of Cal Lutheran University at William Rowland Stadium, 7 p.m. LAFC 2 and what used to be Galaxy 2, Ventura County Football Club. That's 7 o'clock out at the campus of Cal Lutheran, University. One thing that I don't know that you caught, Lafferty, because I know you couldn't be in the building yesterday. Right. I always love the kind of celebrity corner right down there where, it's oftentimes it's all of our super fans that are usually there, right? Last night, the Bone Thugs and Harmony was there, or at least 2 of the Bone Thugs and Harmony. So I guess it's 1 Bone Thug and 1 Harmony, I think is how it was working down there. It was pretty cool to know that Bone Thugs were in the house. Look, I oftentimes have to have it explained to me who most of the musical acts are that are down there. Much like Coog said, if it's after Dean Martin, it doesn't resonate with him. A lot of these guys, if they're on TikTok and they're famous for some reason, maybe my middle school students will understand who half of these people are. I got legitimately happy, as did Dario, who sits behind us, and several of us in Founders. I got legitimately happy when they showed the 2 Bone Thugs and Harmony that I believe are not in jail right now. And I'm not kidding. I think Busy Bone is either still in jail or I don't know what's going on. But I love Bone Thugs and Harmony. I spent a lot of time in my high school years listening to Bone Thugs and Harmonies. That was pretty coll seeing at least 2 of them. I don't know who they were, by the way. I know who Bone Thugs and Harmony is, but I don't know which Bones. There was Busy Bone and Funny Bone and all the other. I don't know who the Bones are, but I really enjoyed seeing Bone Thugs and Harmony there. Lafferty, did you spend any of your formative years listening to Bone Thugs and Harmony?
I did, and I'll tell you what, after this game, it felt like I was seeing you at the crossroads. So it was not, it was, yes, the game was not what we wanted. It is always really cool to see who is coming to these matches. Huge credit, definitely, I believe, as far as I know, Rich Orozco does an awesome job of bringing not only people to our games, but bringing LAFC to the greater community and expanding the brand and really bringing the brand out to these global names who otherwise might not, know about LAFC, or just maybe they know of them, but it's just not a thing they're familiar with. And so everybody does a great job. And him and his team of getting just everybody aware of what's going on. And so that's why throughout the years, we've been able to look around and see, oh my God, that's that person. You get some awesome people who show up in the building. And, many of the listeners here, just like me, are big wrestling fans. Last night, Ray Phoenix was there. Ray Phoenix, huge Mexican wrestler, luchador. He's been him and his brother Penta are 2 of the best wrestlers in the world. Definitely I'd say 2 of the best outside of the Guerrero family to come from Mexico. And we're seeing them now. We saw them for the last 5-6 years in AEW, and now they're in WWE, and they're both doing very well for themselves. So when I saw Ray Phoenix there, he's somebody who I used to see wrestle in independent matches in Chicago at the Logan Square Auditorium, which had 1,000 people in it. And now he's, in WrestleMania. So it's pretty awesome to see when guys like that come up. And then it's something that I sent to my wrestling buddy group chat, hey, look who's black and gold now. It's something awesome to where it creates this connection for all these different worlds that just collide all through LAFC in that little magical corner right down there by Section 101.
Yeah, Brie Larson at one of the last matches, Captain Marvel. That was really cool to see. I mean, look, Johnny Hecker, who's my favorite Rams player of all time. We've got all kinds of fun players that come through. It was pretty cool to see Bone Thugs last night. MLS regular season match number 21 for LAFC on the season. 3 matches in hand, I believe, on Carson, as they will have played 24 after this one. And look, we've talked about it. The worst season in Carson history as of right now. 14 losses already on the season. It's been awful for them this year. It's just been it's unprecedented. Starting the year off 15 matches in a row without a win. And it hasn't gotten much better since. I believe they're now, 3-2-3 since that 15-match winless streak. They have allowed 45 goals coming into this in Major League Soccer. They would allow 3 more. And they are last in the West. That has not changed. They remain last in the West, but I believe now second to last in the wooden spoon race. And look, this is meeting number 26. LAFC has not played any club more than the 26 times that we have played Carson. We have played a couple of other clubs 25 times, so it's not the sprint out into the lead as it used to be back when Don Garber was having us play 3 and 4 and 5 times in a season. It's our 21st of those 26 meetings in the regular season. LAFC 6-8-6 in those regular season matches, but at BMO Stadium, LAFC is 7 wins, 2 losses, and 3 draws. And look, if you're going to put lipstick on this pig, the lipstick on the pig is that LAFC has still never lost to the Galaxy at home in front of supporters. We lost in 2020 when the building was empty. But when LAFC has their supporters in the building, LAFC has not lost to the Galaxy in a regular season match at home in front of supporters. So there's that. Greg Vanney is in his 5th season. He has coached 183 matches for Carson. He has 4 matches over 500, 72 wins, 68 losses, 43 draws. They have a +7 goal differential in 183 matches. And as Rob Halon said from Lacuna Galaxiata podcast, who was on One More Sleep, that just simply isn't good enough. And against LAFC, now, after having coached in this match, he has 6 wins, 6 losses, and 4 draws. LAFC and Galaxy would come out in a 4-3-3. There was a supposed boycott by Galaxy supporters groups, but there were still plenty of white shirts up in that little section over on the east side there in the corner, the southeast corner of our stadium.
217, 219, something like that.
Yeah, those little sections over there. And they sometimes chanted. They weren't very loud for very often, up until, oddly enough, the very end of the match, which they should have been, because yikes. All right, Galaxy come out in a 4-3-3. I'll go over their lineup. Lafferty will talk about our 4-3-3 for the black and gold. Obviously, we knew no Ricky Pooch in this one. It's definitely a different match. He's their lightning rod. If they had a villain on their team, it would be that guy, Ricky Pooch. But he was not out there. Their goalkeeper, and what Greg Vanney has said is that the goalkeeper competition, or him screwing around with the goalkeeping for all season, playing this keeper, then that keeper, then this keeper, then that keeper, that is all done with. He says he's going with Novak Mitrovic for the remainder of the season. Maybe he'll reconsider after 3 goals given up in this one, but I don't know. Their back line, they're 4, Mickey Yamane, Maya Yoshida, Emiro Garces, and Julian Aude. Aude left their previous match with concussion protocol. He very clearly was fine and started in this one. Their midfield, the German legend Marco Reus, Edwin Cerrillo, and Lucas Sanabria. And their front line, Joseph Paintsel, who we know very, very well from his matches against us. Mateus Nascimento, who has really come into his own, playing very well in the middle. And in my opinion, other than Denis Bawanga, the most talented player on the pitch for either side, and a player who we have tons of trouble with, and certainly did so again last night as he scored a brace Juan Gabriel Peck. In the 18th, there was Diego Fagundes, John Nelson, Christian Ramirez, Mauricio Cuevas, and Isaiah Parente. Those were the 5 that we would see, 4 of them coming on at once in a bit of a line change. That was the 18. Those were the players we would see in the Herbalife Sash. Chris Lafferty, who would we see in the 4-3-3 for LAFC?
In goal, Mr. Kick Save and Abute himself, Hugo Lloris. Also wearing the captain's armband again. He is our captain, now with Aaron Long out. We got Hollingshead in front of him, Eddie Segura, Nkosi Tafari, Sergi Palencia. In the midfield, we had Mark Delgado, Igor Jesus, and Timothy Tillman. Up front, we had the front 3 of Bawanga, Ordaz, and Javiro Dilrosin. In the 18, coming off the bench, we got to see Jeremy Abobasi, Frankie Amaya, Yaya Boa, David Martinez, Artem Smolyakov.
Yeah, and as was confirmed by LAFC, number 62, Josh Santiago of LAFC 2, signing a short-term contract. They said he signed a short-term contract and was available for the Galaxy game. They did not do the same press release, even though he was available for Minnesota. I'm assuming that this short-term contract ran through both matches. So congratulations to Josh, even though obviously he would not see the pitch.
Hey, you know what I picked up during the week?
Yes, sir.
C2 posted a video that Odin Thiago Holm is playing for them again. So see the man back in the field again. You know, it started off the year with some high hopes coming into the offseason. Had some bad injuries, but hey, you know, I mean, as we're getting whittled down here with our depth, it's nice to see some guys coming back at least.
Yeah, the depth is hurting right now, right? But what worries me is we saw Lorenzo Della Valle play a handful of minutes for LAFC 2, and then he went back on the shelf with injury. Odin Thiago Holm has been playing down there for a little bit. Jude Terry has been playing down there for a little bit. He's healthy. He's just he's playing more for LAFC 2 than he is for the big club. Maybe that's a player. I know he's only 16 years old, but he's all kinds of talented, apparently. It'd be fun to maybe see him get some minutes. There's injury issues now with Ryan Raposo again. Not sure what's going on with him. So it's tough. It's certainly tough. In the 26th minute of this match, we are going to fast forward all the way to the first 26 minutes because despite LAFC ceding possession for much of the first 25 minutes, which, by the way, is what I thought LAFC would do. I absolutely said this during One More Sleep. We were talking about it on both. I went on the Galaxy podcast, Lacuna Galaxiana podcast. I also said it on One More Sleep. I thought LAFC would be content to sit back and defend, especially if we were going to do so with 5 in the back, but going to a 4-3-3 again. We ceded possession for not just most of the first 25 minutes, but for, depending on who you look at, whether it's FOTMob or whether it's MLSsoccer.com, anywhere between 63 and 67% of the time of the entire damn match, which I thought was a little bit too much. I was hoping it would be a lot closer to 55-45, maybe 60-40. But, oh my goodness, it was far too much. But LAFC gets on the board first, 26th minute, an absolutely spectacular ball by Ryan Hollingshead for his 23rd MLS assist to a streaking Denis Bawanga, and this time he finished his chance for sure. It was nice to see because obviously one of the questions, Chris, that we had coming into this would be would LAFC, and by LAFC, what we meant by that was that would Denis Bawanga be able to finish his chances? We saw him absolutely scuttle 2 easy. And I'm talking not just for Denis Bawanga easy, but for what you and me would have considered relatively easy chances at the end of the Minnesota match. So it was really nice to see Denis Bawanga in the 26th minute, goal number 86 in an LAFC shirt. And honestly, the atmosphere in the stadium, the weight, the stress, the nervousness, it lifted just a little bit after watching Denis put that one in the back of the net.
Yeah, because the goals that we talked about, or the not goals that we talked about against Minnesota, were ones that I think we'd see a guy like Poncho Ginello really bury in the back of the net. So, for a guy like Denis Bouanga to miss him, you could think, you wonder, it's like, oh, I hope that's not indicative of anything and it's just a fluke. And well, he came out and said, yes, I also don't wear the number 8 on the back of my jersey. I'm number 99. Don't you forget it. It was a fluke, and I'm here to stay. And Denis Bouanga just put his signature on that one, and had a beautiful shot across on a weird angle that I was very happy to see him put in the net, because a lot of times I think we've seen a lot of those where maybe they just don't connect, they're just not online. A lot, we talked about Denis. I think he was eligible for the Golden Crossbar at the beginning of the last 2 seasons, and one that I think we've seen time and time again where he gets these fantastic shots off, but because they're so there's such a balancing act for him that he's doing, that they're just not able to go in all the time. But for whatever reason, last night he found himself, and man, he was burying them, because that's the kind of guy he is. He rises to the occasion, and everything was just 100% on, laser focused for him last night.
Yeah, I thought that was a fantastic start to the match. Obviously, that is not that's not an insightful observation at all. But I thought even better, obviously, in the 31st minute. If you watch, we're pretty lucky. You have, I believe it was Maya Yoshida who stepped up to try and force Nathan Ordaz offside, but Julien Aude didn't get the memo across the pitch on the other side. And Julien Aude is the one that keeps Nathan Ordaz on side as he was making his run up the left side in the 31st minute. And look, we talk about Ryan Hollingshead, and the former striker at UCLA, who has since become an outside back in Major League Soccer and is incredibly talented offensively for an outside back. Well, how about the young kid, Nathan Ordaz? This pass from Nate to Javier Del Rosa. And look, kudos to Javier. I thought it was like a bad first touch. No, he actually very deftly touched that ball from his right to his left, putting in the back of the net. And honestly, we've got Hollingshead combining with Bouanga. You have Ordaz combining with Del Rosa. It felt like the LAFC that we have been waiting for to rear their head and to show their offensive firepower, their capability. This is what we expected. Finally, LAFC, our attack with Nathan Ordaz in the middle, which we had been saying since we brought over Olivier Giroud, our club is better with Nathan Ordaz in the middle. Our club is better with Denis Bouanga on one side and a great attacking player on the other. Maybe like Javier Del Rosa. I'm still not sold on him. I'm still not sold on David Martinez. But that being said, you look at everything through the first 31 minutes of the match. We're up 2-0. We're playing out in front, and we are allowing Galaxy, sure, to possess, but like we saw oftentimes with Ricky Pooch was in the lineup the last couple seasons, possession doesn't always equal performance for the Galaxy, and it took them up until, by the way, just before the 32-minute, 52-second, the 32-52 mark of the match, to get their first shot on target, Galaxy. So first 33 minutes of the match, while LAFC was ceding a ton of possession, they weren't ceding anything dangerous. It was fine. And when we countered, when we had a chance, we capitalized on those chances. 2 goals in 2 shots on goal. It was an absolutely incredible performance for the first 33 matches. And then Lafferty, like we see in all of these El Tráfico matches, there's going to be that one stupid moment. Whether it's for Carson or for us, there's going to be one. And Lafferty, what the hell was Ryan Hollingshead doing with his hand up in the box at that time? I don't understand.
It was definitely the most impactful handball from us on the game, but definitely not the only one. We'll get into that later. Mr. Timothy Tillman, I'm looking at you. Look, These are the kind of things I look at it two ways. The At first I'm kind of like, yes, all right, you don't want to see these plays happen or these sorts of things take place because in a match like this where I hate to say it because it's kind of cliche now, but you throw all the records out the window and it seems like everything's always even. You don't want to give up stupid things like this, or you don't want to let them in with the opportunities that they didn't earn because that could come back to bite you. And oftentimes in these matches, no matter who they're for, if you allow a free goal like that, it could very well come back to bite you, and so often it does. And in this match, it did. The one optimistic way that I was looking at it at the time, while still nervous, knowing that we just gifted them a free goal, was also that, well, at this point, over a half hour into the match, the only time they get any sort of offense, the only time they get any sort of opportunity to get a goal is because of a fluke. And if they're going to rely on flukes, well, I'm going to feel really good about our chances in the rest of this match. Still, that's a goal on the score sheet that you don't want to have, especially when they didn't earn it.
And look, it's tough, right? Because we all know, Johnny even said it in the chat, Ugo is very, very good at a lot of things. Saving PKs is never going to be one of those things for Ugo. And so, look, I never put a PK, obviously, on the keeper. That one. And by the way, Ryan was beside himself at having done what he did. So he took accountability for it and moved forward. And I thought for most of the rest of the match, Ryan Hollingshead actually played a very, very, very good match. In fact, after Gabriel Peck buries the penalty to make it now 2-1 in the, 36th minute, I think is when they said the penalty happened. It was right after. Yeah, 36th minute. He almost scores for us in the 42nd minute. It was a nice little ball over the top, a little flick on to Sergi Palencia. Palencia heads it over to Ryan. Ryan heads it down to Mitrovic, which is a much easier save on the rewatch. It would have been nice had Ryan been able to put that anywhere, but it was tough. He was being bodied up. We go into the half up 2-1, and the feel of the match, even though we had dominated and it was a fluke, the feel of the match was, God, we let Carson back in it. We let Carson back in it by scoring this goal right before halftime. It really felt like, all right, well, now we still got work to do. I think it's still the stupidest saying in sports that a 2-0 lead or 2-0, the stupidest thing in soccer, that a 2-0 lead is the worst lead in the sport. I totally disagree. But
I was going to say that twice actually in this podcast, but just because, and that was the only thing that I was laughing about on the drive home. I go, wow, we blew two goal leads. I go, JR is going to absolutely hate me tomorrow morning when I say that.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely ridiculous when anybody says, "Oh, it's a 2-0 lead. It's the worst lead in." Come on, stop it, please. Either way, Diego Fagundes comes on for Lucas Sanabria, and honestly, first 20 minutes or so of the second half, LAFC again continuing to cede possession a little bit, not to the egregious amount that we'll begin starting to after we talk about what happens here on this play, but still conceding possession. I think it was still like 60-40 at this point, according to FOTMob, and it was like 62-38 according to MLSsoccer.com. But we didn't need possession. We didn't need possession because we have number 99 and nobody else does. And in the 67th minute, Denis Bouanga said, okay, if we are going to cede a soft goal and cut the lead in half, I am going to have to put on my cape and I am going to have to give BMO Stadium, give the black and gold faithful, give the millions
And millions
a reason to believe again. And in the 67th minute, Denis' first touch, I think he was trying to play it over to Nathan Ordaz, but Nate couldn't get to the ball. It wasn't a very good first touch. So Denis just played Roadrunner and went beep, beep, zoom right through the middle of the pitch. We're talking about an 80-yard sprint. An 80-yard sprint from the time he touches that ball until the time he puts it past Mitrovic for a 3-1 lead. 67 minutes in. 67 minutes in, LAFC goes up 3-1, and then from just about that point, I'll say 70th minute on, everything LAFC did for the rest of that match was playing not to lose, playing tentative, playing small, playing meek, allowing Carson to possess and possess and possess. Why LAFC didn't just draw the ball back out, kick it around the back a couple of times, slow some things down, maybe commit an extra foul or two if you need to. Carson all of a sudden began to use our half of the pitch as their half of the pitch. And then I don't really understand the substitution patterns here. I'll say this. In the 76th minute, sure, maybe it's time to take out Nathan Ordaz, bring on Jeremy Abobasi, and have him help kind of clear things out in the middle. Maybe he holds a little bit more, but that's not how we wound up playing him. We wound up playing him eventually as like the tip of the spear all the way up top, which I don't know is ever where I want Jeremy Abobasi. I'd rather have him playing back more. But Jeremy Abobasi comes on for Nathan Ordaz, and I didn't understand the sub. I'm sorry. I didn't understand the sub of Frankie Amaya coming on for Mark Delgado. Mark Delgado still looked relatively fresh. He still looked relatively healthy. And oh, by the way, he played for them last year. He knows who they are and what they do. And of course, Lafferty, as soon as we make those subs, just a couple minutes later, all Galaxy did was one simple triangle passing drills up the right-hand side until Marco Reus and Gabriel Peck are able to connect, and now it's 3-2.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing as well, I love a lot of these guys that we have coming off the bench. There's a lot of daylight, I think, between our number one guys on the depth chart and our number two guys on the depth chart, if you will. I hate that when we bring in some of the guys that we do, there is a noticeable change in the performance on the pitch. I like Frankie Amaya, I do. I think he's been pretty good, but compared to Mark Delgado, I think we've said it before. I think Mark Delgado, aside from Denny Bawanga, is the engine. I think he's the engine of the midfield for sure. He's the one that I rely upon the most, that I have the most faith in the midfield, for sure. I really like the development of Igor Jesus so far, but still there is, a couple of teachable moments for him, a lot of like learning experience happening. But I think Mark Delgado is an all-around solid player. He's somebody that the coaching staff trusts as if he's been here since day one. He's somebody that the fan base has learned very quickly, oh, so what if he played for the other guys before? He's really, really good. He's somebody that we just have a lot of faith in. And so when he comes off, if it's not because he's hurt or injured, I'm just left scratching my head. In a game like this, why do you start taking the heart out of the team? Why do you start taking the engine out of the car? And look, I'll say this, not as a defense of him, just for my own humility's sake, is that I'm not a coach. I don't know how to coach soccer. I can't criticize our coach as much about everything because I know I can't do a better job. I can't do nearly as good a job. But I see these things, and as a fan, this is where that reaction comes in, because what I do know is what I see out there of, okay, these are the guys that I latch onto. These are the guys that make me love watching the black and gold, because I know for the 100% passion that we give to this team, we're getting it back from players like Mark Delgado. So to not have him out on the pitch or have him come off for any moment that's not of his doing, it just, At best, it's a head scratcher, but at most, you're just with all your nerves ready to throw a chair across the room.
Well, and my thing is this: when we went to the 5-2-3, it wasn't Mark Delgado who came off because of what he brings to the table. It was Igor Jesus who came off last match. So we had Timothy Tillman and Mark Delgado out there for a reason. And I would rather have, even if he's tired, even if he's less than what he needs to be, I'd rather have 85% of Mark Delgado in that situation for the last 15 minutes of the match. Especially because, I mean, the run that Nascimento made into that near post, taking two defenders away, a wide open Gabriel Peck, an easy find for a player, the capability and the talent of Marco Reus. It was as easy of a second goal as you will ever see, as if Greg Vanny said, okay, they've taken Delgado out now. Here's how we attack them on this opposite side. This is what we've been training for. And it was triangle passing drill after triangle passing drill. And then a beautiful run to the near post by Nascimento and an easy find from Marco Reus to Gabriel Peck.
And because, sorry to cut you off, but yeah, because Greg Vanny knows, okay, this is not a player I know because I've watched tape on him. It's a player that I know because I've coached him for years and years in two different cities. I think, to me, I think Mark Delgado is, I don't want to say our best weapon out there because I believe it's Denny Bwanga, but I think he's definitely maybe our best asset in terms of facilitating of the match, because he's yeah, I think that's it, because he's the facilitator out there for us. That's who I put it on. That's who I look to for that. But it makes me wonder, okay, when we went to that, the 5-2-3 in the last game, it was Jesus that was the odd man out for our midfield, and so it was Delgado and Tillman. But if you look at, Tillman, he had an opportunity for a goal earlier in the game. He had like a breakaway pass, and then just indecisiveness, and next thing they just kicked it right at the keeper. Really, with the commentary team called him out. Just said, he was a little unsure of himself, didn't have maybe a little trepidation, or was just a little hesitancy going into that shot, where it's like, dude, you know what to do, just do it. Also, I think some of his passes, again, it's a thing with Tillman, where every time when I'm starting to really turn the corner on him, he goes and does something that just makes me go, oh yeah, maybe I was right all along. And then he has that play at some point, I forgot where it was in the game, where the Galaxy get a free kick because he has a handball, because he very much did a Stretch Armstrong. And I think he was trying to audition to be, the fifth Galaxy keeper or something, and stuck his hand out and swatted the ball away. And I was like, dude, what are you? I mean, it wasn't even like it was, a fluke or like in a natural movement that the ball just hit. So I'm watching all these things, and then it's frustrating me because, Jesus will be the odd man out if we go two in the midfield. Mark Delgado will be the first one to get subbed off, even though he's playing really well, and I think is our maestro in the midfield. And yet I'm watching guys like Timothy Tillman not connecting with passes, which was a big problem late in the game for the entire club, for the entire team, making bonehead mistakes and just generally being indecisive with balls. So I'm not here to harp on the guy, but if we're going to take off a guy like Mark Delgado, I got to see a lot more from Tillman, because it's really frustrating me when we're relying on guys like him and he's not stepping up to the challenge.
Yeah, I hear that. Speaking of getting guys onto the pitch, 81st minute, Galaxy make a line change. You got John Nelson, Christian Ramirez, Mauricio Cuevas, and Isaiah Parente all coming on. So this was Greg Vanny obviously pushing his chips into the middle of the table and saying, all right, we have 9 minutes. Let me get as many fresh bodies in as many different places on as many different lines as I possibly can. We know that Christian Ramirez, we saw it when he was playing for Columbus in MLS Cup. We know he wants to get a late one on us as often as he can because of how his stay at LAFC went. It went poorly. Parente, who was on a yellow card accumulation watch before this, he comes on knowing, all right, I got to play 9 minutes as hard as I can. Same thing with Cuevas. John Nelson, who is not offensive in any way, shape, or form, gave them a little bit better shape defensively in this one. And I thought it really changed the way that Carson played. But the real head scratcher of the night for me was not David Martinez coming on for Javier Del Rosen. I have no problem with David Martinez and Del Rosen.
It's fine.
I don't understand. I will never understand this substitution. And again, I am not one that often questions X's and O's, but I do feel that we have a responsibility to hold certain moves and certain decisions accountable. And I do not understand taking off Denis Bouanga at any point in this match. Sure, he's going to be in the skills competition on Tuesday, the All-Star game on Wednesday, and likely playing, as many minutes as possible against Portland on Friday. But we are talking about Denis freaking Bouanga here. We're talking about a guy who isn't simply an offensive player. We're talking about the heart and soul of our team, of our club on that pitch, who has shown us time and time and time again that he will track back and defend and do the dirty work and get in the box and be an extra defender when we need him to, especially to see out a 3-2 Derby win on your home pitch against Carson. I don't understand why that happened. I don't understand why that happened. Now, that being said, we still head into stoppage time, up 3-2, and we have to talk for just a minute, talking about Christian Riss. By the way, let me stop everybody in the chat. Everybody in the chat that's talking about, oh, we got to ask tough questions. They might pull your credentials. They might do this. Can we all stop with that? I got something to say about that real quick. They didn't pull anybody's credentials for asking tough questions or for asking inappropriate questions. They didn't pull anybody's credentials for that. And they wouldn't pull mine if I asked Steve Cherundolo, why did you take Denis Bouanga out? But to me, that wasn't the most important question. In fact, if you want to hear the question that I thought was most important, it's this one right here. Coach, you said that it's okay to get one instead of three, but I'm just wondering, Derby matches against Galaxy, they're different, right? They're different in the stands, they're different on the pitch. The tenor of this really seemed to show maybe we were the LAFC was playing back on their heels a little bit those last 15, 20 minutes. Did you feel that from the sideline? And do you think there was anything that you maybe could have done differently to those last 15 minutes to close it out?
There's always things you can do differently. I think a compilation of things throughout the first half of maybe not circulating the ball enough, not making the Galaxy defend for longer periods, would be something that the players on the field should do differently tonight. Other than that, there's not a whole lot more you can do. We've had a pretty insane schedule. Yes, you can see and feel the fatigues. And if you look at our roster, we're pretty thin. And so there's not always a solution you can do. Sometimes you got to hold on and grind out results. And tonight we came up 10 seconds too short.
That's his answer. That's his answer. Talking about things in the first half that we could have done differently to prevent what happened in the second half. I don't agree with that answer at all. I didn't like that answer at all. That's the bottom line. But I'd rather hear his entire take on the last 15 minutes than ask a rather more myopic question about, well, what happened with Denis Bouanga? Why did we take him out in the 84th? Everybody needs to stop complaining about press credentials being taken away because it just didn't happen. Okay? So we need to stop. I'll ask whatever tough questions that I can, as will Philly, as will Josh, as will Scott, as will Kevin Baxter from time to time. But in that room, what we try and do is ask them professionally. I can't wear my heart on my sleeve with a lot of these questions. I can't. Moreover, I don't want to, because I want to be invited back into the room the next time so I can continue holding LAFC accountable and being able to ask the questions that we can. So please, for everybody in the chat that is doing this whole thing about, oh, they'll take away your credentials if you ask a difficult question. That's not how LAFC PR works. That's not how it works. I know you guys have heard some misinformation out there, some things that are true and some things that aren't about what happened with certain people's situations. But I can tell you that a press credential is a hard plastic thing that you get for an entire season. And that's what I have. And I'm not trying to get that taken away, number one, and I'm not trying to be soft, number two. I'm trying to hold people as accountable as possible. That being said, Lafferty, Hugo Lloris's save, and then save again in the 88th minute was the highlight of the night in a poor defensive performance.
I had to watch the replay on it as it was happening because I was just staring at the net going, that's going in. That's going. And then it didn't. It found sideline. And man, I'll tell you what, I called it earlier when I was announcing the starting lineup in the beginning of this episode, Mr. Kick, Save, and a Butte, because that's what it was. And I'll tell you what, people can say what they want about Lloris, and penalty kicks is just a crapshoot anyway. But look, the guy is on, and it's what you love to see, because you're not just looking for that first save or that first move. You know you may have to follow up 2 or 3 more times to get it. And that's what he does. He does not make a play and celebrate. He does not make a play and pretend it's finished or think about what just happened. He keeps going. And that's why a guy like him has had the career that he has. That's why a guy like him continues to perform like he has for us, because look, he's top notch, guys. Yes, is every game a clean sheet? No, because he's not perfect. But I'll tell you what, that Hugo Lloris, I love Maxime Crepeau. I love John McCarthy, and I felt very comfortable with the both of them in goal. I'm not going to criticize any of them. I think they were both people that I felt really good about when we had in net. I've never felt better about anybody than Hugo Lloris. That's not a criticism of Crepeau or McCarthy, because those guys were top notch. I just think Hugo Lloris is a number one, and it's been a step up, and I've just been so thrilled with the effort that he gives us and the performance that he does. I couldn't have asked for more from him last night, honestly.
Yeah, it's Ruben. I'm going to address that. I'm going to put a star on this one for Ruben. Ruben, I'll address that in a minute. No, I totally agree. Hugo making that save for a guy who's, look, he's pretty damn mobile for as old as he is. He does some wonderful things. The instinctiveness and how quickly he kind of kicked up at that ball without also, by the way, making any contact with Christian Ramirez, who was right in his pocket at the time. I was just so impressed by both saves there by Hugo Lloris. We gave up 3 goals in this match, and Hugo made every save that he needed to in order to keep us in a position to win this one. If you look at the goals that were scored, a PK is never on the goalkeeper. We would love him to guess correctly on that one. He didn't. Oh, well, it is what it is. But you look at the 2 goals that were scored are not nearly put on Hugo Lloris in any way, shape, and form. We sub on Artem Smolyakov in the 90th minute to park the bus. And that substitution is the end of our subs. Timothy Tillman comes off. Artem comes on. We're now playing 5 in the back for at least another minute or so because Eddie Segura would be sent off. Eldon Yakupovic is playing for Chattanooga. You're absolutely right, Denny Bwanga.
Shoot.
My issue with everything that happened there in the first minute of stoppage time as Eddie Segura gets the red card, right? No, I'm not saying nothing is put on Ugo. I'm saying this match, not put on Ugo. Not at all. Eddie Segura gets his red card, right? And look, let's be very real. Eddie Segura put his hands on the dude's throat. There's a still photo that you can very clearly see, and that might have been the angle that the referee caught. He was very adamant right away. He pointed hands to his throat. And if you look, Eddie really didn't even argue. He had kind of a sheepish grin. Everybody else, Sergi Palencia was apoplectic. Denis Bouanga almost lost his mind. After the match, Steve Cherundolo, Denis Bouanga, several other people had something to say. I will say this. I would rather have Eddie Segura do what he did in that moment, coming to the aid of a young kid like David Martinez, who was being bullied and ganged up upon by 3 Carson players. So Eddie Segura and others bulldozed through and tried to defend one of our own. Unfortunately, the way that Eddie chose to do it has to result in that red card. I don't know how a player like Diego Fagundes doesn't also get a red for what happened there. Offsetting reds might have been the most appropriate of any of the outcomes in that. But Eddie came to the aid of our boy. So I can't get mad at Eddie for that. But I want to be very clear. By the time everything got restarted, from the time that the head referee gave the amount of stoppage time to the 4th official, there was about 2 minutes that had gone by. From about the 90th minute to the 2nd minute of stoppage when everything got restarted. And how much time was given in stoppage? 5 minutes. So I believe that the fact that it went 7 minutes instead of 5 minutes was indicative of how long it took the referee and that whole situation to resolve itself at the very end of the 90th minute through the first couple minutes of stoppage time. So then we were allowed to play 5 minutes of stoppage after the dust-up happened. So I don't think the referee was incorrect in allowing the amount of time to elapse. I don't think that was incorrect. What I think was absolutely egregious and needs to be looked at is if Eddie Segura gets that red, what's going on with Diego Fagundes and how come more players weren't disciplined in a similar way? Even Steve Cherundolo laughed, he said it in the press conference, right? When he said either somebody else needs to get a red, you could have given more reds, or nobody gets a red. I think Eddie had to get the red. I'm sorry for what he did. You get a red for that, sure. But where's Fagundes? Where's the accountability on the other side? That's the part that's a little frustrating.
Yeah, and my buddy who I was watching with pointed it out. I forgot who on the Galaxy also grabbed somebody around the head or the neck or up in that area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and if you're gonna start giving reds for something that you saw, well, take a look at the whole there because the entirety of the situation, because there were more to give and they just didn't. And I think the referee was overwhelmed and out of his element. And I don't think he got a handle on it. And quite frankly, and I think that showed for me after the match, which I don't mean to jump ahead to, but it's relevant now because we saw it at the end. The referee, Denis Bouanga, went up, was giving him a talking to, and all he could say was, go, go, go. I'm not listening to you. And he was just losing his mind. He was screaming at Bouanga. And that just shows me he is not a referee in control. I think that the other officials that were there being his bodyguards knew it, and they had to be, again, his bodyguards for him. They had to really be like, oh. And then later when Steve Cherundolo went up to that same referee and was ripping into him, another team member, a staff member, and head of security, Paul, had to pull Bouanga out of there and get him away, which, glad, make sure they calmed down so nothing further happened. I was afraid the ref was going to pull a red card out on him. They got him out of there. And then, when Cherundolo was ripping into the guy, and it was Greg Vanny who was the only one there to pull him away. So, that to me said a lot, that the opposing team coach knew, I better get this guy out of here. It just, it was one where I also think there were just a lot of people who had a lot of beef with that official, because I think he did a horrible job. I think he was out of his element. I think he was overwhelmed. I don't think he had it within him to handle that moment. And it unfortunately results in a red card for Segura and missing next game when we're already decimated at the in the back line. And I really think he did a horrible job of giving out appropriate punishments to everyone involved.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We'll get to what you just said actually in just a second, because holy crap, are we in trouble? Mauricio Cuevas to Maya Yoshida on a cross. They brought in Cuevas as part of that line change in the 81st minute, excuse me. They brought in Cuevas because he is an excellent crosser into the box. That's what he does. And Maya Yoshida, he's a legend for a reason, not with Galaxy, not in MLS, but he's a legend for a reason. He has always been dangerous in and around the box, and Kosi Tafari got beat to the spot by Maya Yoshida, and it wasn't positioning by Hugo Lloris. It was just a beautiful header into the corner. Nothing that Hugo could have done or should have done in that, for sure. And that's the last touch of the game. The last touch of the game ends at 3-3, and I threw things, not down on the pitch or anything, but from my seat, there's stairs right next to me. I threw something down onto the stairs. I was apoplectically pissed at what happened with that goal. Steve said, maybe we could have fouled. Maybe we could have. Javier Del Rosen, right, said something in the same thing in the press conference. Maybe we could have fouled. Maybe we could have slowed down the game. Maybe we could have done, all kinds of different things. And that's easy to say in hindsight. Absolutely ridiculous. If you're a neutral, by the way, if you're an MLS watcher, this match was unbelievable for you because it had everything. If you don't care about either side, the match absolutely had everything. As disappointing of a second half. I want to talk about something before you and I can talk about the back line. We're going a little bit long on today's episode, but I feel like we have to, and I really appreciate everybody sticking around for this one. According to MLSsoccer.com, we got outpossessed 63-37. FOTMob had it 65-35. And in the second half, FOTMob had it 67-33. That's far too much. We were outshot in the second half 8-2, on target 4-1. Simply LAFC, after that 67th minute, after Denis Bouanga's moment of magic, LAFC went missing, put them all on a milk carton at that point in terms of offensive capability. I didn't think, and I said this on a couple of different shows this week, I didn't think that Galaxy could win with Maya Yoshida or Mickey Yamane, my two players to watch, leading the team in touches. I thought they weren't good enough to play out of the back, and I thought that we would, if they led the team in touches, I thought that we would be just fine. To help underscore how bad we were in the second half, 8 players on Carson had more than Mark Delgado's LAFC leading 62 touches. 8 players on Carson had more than Mark Delgado's 62 touches. Who had the most touches? 137 touches for Maya Yoshida, 25 more than any other player on the pitch. 137. They played out of the back just like they did against Austin when they looked that badly. But moreover, of their 8 players who had more than Mark Delgado's 62 touches, the player who had 66 touches on the game, Diego Fagundes subbed in at halftime and still had more touches. Now, I know Mark Delgado came out of the game, and so he didn't play a full 90. But it is unbelievable that we allowed Galaxy to possess and possess and possess and possess. You give a blind monkey a typewriter, and if you let them keep pounding on the keys, eventually one of them might accidentally spell out some Shakespeare. And what happened in this one is they found some Shakespeare after having opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to possess, to probe, to assess, to find a hole, to pick a lane, and to allow at least one or two players on our side to play a little tired for a possession or two and to exploit an opportunity like that. That's the problem that I have, is that from the very start of the match, they had a plan to possess and control, and we continually allowed them to do it despite seeing the writing on that wall. That's my frustrating part. But Chris Lafferty, we got to talk about the thing that you just brought up. Maxime Chanot was standing in Founders Club. He has been out with concussion protocol issues for quite some time. Aaron Long, we obviously know, has a season-ending Achilles injury. Lorenzo Della Valle is not going to be playing for LAFC anytime soon. And now Eddie Segura is going to miss the match against Portland, which leaves Nkosi Tafari, as I understand it, as our only healthy center back. Your suggestion for what happens on the back line, Lafferty.
I think we start throwing guys back like we did in the last game, only it's going to have to be guys like Smolyakov, Hollingshead, Valencia. As far as center back, where do we go? Where do we go? Who can play? Who can shift over if it's not their natural position? Who's it got to be? But here's my thing, and it's not to dodge that question because I'll admit I don't know where we go with the center back position and who from the roster will be adequately enough to fill that spot. But maybe it's not about just throwing everything at the back line and hoping and praying that we can just stop whatever opponent's attack is coming up. I think our best defense is going to have to be a great offense. And I think we're going to have to start sending guys forward. We're going to have to start with the passes going forward, not going back as much. And I think we're going to have to start just firing away and just start ripping them because we've got to start putting up numbers. Because while we're winning a lot of games, while we've been doing really well, I also feel there's a lot to be left on the table. I don't look at, we won against Minnesota 1-0 on a penalty kick. Like I said, after that one, okay, I was, fine with that because we typically don't play well there. So I'll just take whatever comes to us. But it's still 1-0 and off of a penalty kick, which is more of a mistake on the other team than it is our own doing. So I'd rather we start working on bolstering our attack. And I'll just seeing what happens on the back line and just start going forward with it and start making teams pay. And if they're going to want to beat us, they're going to have to beat us 5-4, 6-5. I know that sounds crazy to say 6-5, but that's the mentality I want, is that we're going to start putting them up. And if you're going to want to beat us, you're going to have to catch us. And it's just going to, I want our shoe and boots to go on, my man. That's just what I need right now because I don't like squeaking out wins that we're getting. We're squeaking them out. And I want from this team a definitive statement. I want them to make a statement because I feel like right now we're allowing ourselves to have a draw snatched from our hands when it looks like we can win. And all that reminds me of is what happened to us like 10 plus times in 2021. How many 3 points we coughed up and left with one. How many times we could have had 1 point and left with none. And I just feel like we're leaving so much on the table because we're not We're not overpowering our opponents like I think we should be. And I think that is going to need to be our identity if we're going to solve this backline problem.
I'll say a couple things. Number one, you guys know my love for Luca Bambino. He's currently on loan at San Diego. His loan runs through the 2024 season. In his last 4 matches, by the way, Luca Bambino has a goal and 2 assists. I absolutely love this kid. Luca Bambino is not coming back, so let's not talk about that. Number 2,
his parents, if they're still listening,
right? I think we play 4 in the back. And I actually would like to see Sergi Palencia alongside of Nkosi Tafari in the middle. And I think that Artem Smolyakov on the one side and Ryan Hollingshead if we're going to play 4 in the back. But I have another solution. I think we go 5 in the back. I think our 5 in the back on one side, Artem Smolyakov, and on the opposite side, Ryan Hollingshead. Or maybe Ryan Hollingshead shifts in. Here's our 3 in the middle. I think you can have Sergi Palencia, Nkosi Tafari, and Ryan Hollingshead in the middle. And as your opposite wingback of Artem Smolyakov, Yayaboa. I would love to see us play 5 in the back. We'd be a little small in the middle with Sergi Palencia, Ryan Hollingshead, and Nkosi Tafari as the 3. But I'm going to say this. Yayaboa is a player who can and has played outside back before. He did it with Columbus. He is capable of doing that for you. And I think it would be really interesting. And we'd be a little bit more dynamic offensively with Artem Smolyakov, Sergi Palencia, Ryan Hollingshead, and Yayaboa all out there at the same time with a player like Nkosi Tafari. You have your midfield trio still intact of Tillman Jesus and Mark Delgado. You can still very clearly play Nathan Ordaz in the middle, Javier Del Rosen, and David Martinez, and Denny Bawanga. Although, by the way, this is our last home match with Javier Del Rosen still under contract. We play Portland on the 25th, but his contract is up on the 24th. So this is really interesting. What will happen with Del Rosen? So slot in David Martinez. So David Martinez, Denis Bawanga, Nathan Ordaz in the middle. Our trio of midfielders that we've started all damn year. And I like Artem Smolyakov and Yayaboa on the outside if we're going to play 5 in the back. If we're going to play 4 in the back, okay. 5 in the back, then that, by the way, means that Jesus has to come back out, right? And we have Tillman and Mark Delgado. So if we go this 5-2-3 route again, until we get Eddie Segura back, 5-2-3, here's what I'm proposing. Take it, leave it, do whatever the hell you want with it. But my 5 in the back, one more time. Artem Smolyakov, Ryan Hollingshead, and Nkosi Tafari, Sergi Palencia, and Yayaboa. Tillman and Delgado in the middle. Our trio up top of David Martinez, because I don't know that Del Rosen will be back. Nathan Ordaz and Denis Bawanga. Let's give it a shot. It's Portland. We'll be at home. This should be a fun one, folks. No Eddie Segura. Half of our center backs are hurt. I don't know. Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I can't believe I forgot to mention Tafari when you asked me, who I would put in the back at center back. Look, and here's I bring it back up because a point that something I started thinking about the last couple of days is that, we're looking like, we need to add players, this and that. We've had Tafari all year, but he hasn't seen the field much, and not for health reasons, not for talent reasons. For whatever reason, he just wasn't getting minutes. So the way I look at it now, it's almost as if we just signed a free agent, but one who comes in fresh and familiar and fully ingrained in the club already. So I look at Tafari as almost like we had an early free agent signing, if you will. And I think he's a big pickup for us at this point in the season. And the last 2 games, I've been very happy with how he's played. I'm glad that he's getting the opportunity. And I think from him, you're seeing a guy who's taking full advantage of that opportunity. So, yeah, I wanted to go back to that.
Yeah. And by the way, the only other 2 defenders under contract, and I contract in quotes, Kenny Nielsen, number 45, who is more, I believe, of a center back type defender. He might maybe get some minutes over these next couple of matches until we can get healthy. And our short-term contract, Josh Santiago, number 62, he may get some minutes as a short-term. Not many of these guys that are on short-term contracts ever do get minutes, but when they do, it's usually sparingly and few and far between. So, all right. That being said, folks, here's the deal. LAFC's next match isn't until the 25th, but we have a lot going on in LAFC world between now and then. As on Tuesday, Denis Bouanga will be participating in the skills competition, and on Wednesday, Denis Bouanga will be participating in the MLS All-Star Game in Austin. So, hey, maybe we'll do a little preview of the All-Star Game on Tuesday. We'll talk about how Denis did in the skills competition. I don't know. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. We got a kit review that we're supposed to be doing. I'm actually hoping Philly's not on the next episode or 2, and I'll tell you why, defenders. It means that Wichita, the team that he has been covering, the Shockers, the former players. Lafferty, what's the name of the team? Do you know? I'm blanking real quick on whatever that team is, but either way.
I don't.
Either way, I'm actually hoping Philly isn't on the next episode or 2, because that means that team continues to advance and Philly gets to keep calling games for the TBT out in Wichita. That's what he is doing right now. That's where he has been. So I'm hoping he still gets to chase down that run with Wichita and continue to call games for the TBT, because I know that's what he loves. I do miss the guy, but he's chasing down that dream. So that's what we want. And
that's why, defenders, if you've been watching on YouTube, just wanted to interject here. That's why I have a Chris Paul jersey up there. This TBT, I think, was, as Philly told me, was founded by Chris Paul, or if not founded, he has a lot to do with it. So this is my little my ode to our friend Philly, who we miss. But look, we're very proud of him. He's mentioned here time and time again that, look, he wants to be a full-time broadcaster. And the man works so hard. He puts in so many hours of preparation, and he takes so many gigs on, calling for anything from WPSL to college soccer with UC Riverside to college basketball with UC Riverside and the soccer tournament, TST, Empire Strikers. And now he got this opportunity. He earned it, because the people at the top of this tournament and at TST said, wow, we really like this guy. And that's a testament to his hard work. So just wanted to throw that out, because we're very proud of Philly here. And this is an ode to him for the TBT. And we just hope all the many more great things come from this tournament for Philly. And we're proud of him, and we want him to keep up the great work. We know we will.
He's okay.
Well, that's how I feel about you, buddy. I don't know about JR.
Hey, listen, to everybody in the chat, to everybody who's been following us along on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on StreamYard, however it is that you access Defenders of the Bank content. Honestly, we love you. I smell terrible. I need a shower because I haven't showered yet. This is the shirt I wore to the match.
Smell you from here.
I know, right? It's been quite the episode. I just noticed, by the way, that you have a yellow telephone behind you. I always forget about that phone there. I always wonder, if anyone's going to call. But that being said, I love the phone. All right, listen. This has been episode 372 of Defenders of the Bank. We absolutely love all of you guys. As Jose said, up the Philly. Why not? That might be our new hashtag for the rest of the season. And I think Chris Lafferty has a parting message for everybody.
Yeah, man, look, here's the thing. I'm pissed about yesterday's game. Not going to mince words. I hated it. I was angry driving home. I was white-knuckling it the whole time. Not speeding, but white-knuckling. And somebody said, oh, even in our worst year, they still can't beat us. The Galaxy said that. Sure. While that's true, here's the thing. Someone also said the Galaxy always rise to the occasion for this matchup. Sure. Well, except in the playoffs. But while that's true, they always show up because they realize that now they're the ones punching up. LA doesn't care about them. They're borderline irrelevant at this point. And they know that, well, they can't be cocky anymore. And so that's why this is their Super Bowl. This is why they keep showing up and rising to the occasion, because they have to. Without that, they're nothing. So LAFC fans, just got to say, yes, as frustrating as this is, as much as we played down to them, let this be for today. But just know it's because we're above them, and LA is black and gold through and through. They're just noise. Stay positive, stay happy, stay hungry, my friends. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next time.